Hello. Hi, everyone. This is Nora Armani, again broadcasting live with the filmmakers. We have today a new group of filmmakers who are in the SRFF Socially Relevant Film Festival 2024 official selection. And we will be talking to them to find out the stories behind their films that are so amazing, that make us wake up in the morning, put together this festival so that we can see these films and show them and share them with everyone else. The Socially Relevant Film Festival has been in existence for the past 11 years. This is our 11th annual edition, and we will be in person at Cinema Village, and then at MRHS up in Harlem, then Cinema Village back again in the village, and then we finish our in-person section with an award ceremony at the National Arts Club on March 18. And then on March 19, most of the films, with the exception of 2 or 3 that don't have licenses or don't wish to go online, will be offered on our online streaming platform. And people who are not in New York or couldn't make it or would love to see a film a second or third time can go online and watch them. So without further ado, let me get out of this solo format and bring back the filmmakers and have them quickly go around introducing themselves, tell us about what your film is about, and then on the second round, we're going to go in depth into each one's film. So we have, there is Holly is next to me right away on the screen. So maybe we'll start with you, Holly.
Oh, Nora, thank you so much. And for any of you who don't know, Nora works really hard. So we're all very grateful for this. And I'm also thrilled as a New Yorker to walk the block that I need to get to the subway. And you're on the bus stops, the film festival. It's fantastic. My name is Holly Carter. I'm the founder and executive director of BYkids, which produces 4 amazing films made by kids around the world. And one of these films is Beekeeper. It's done by a 15-year-old boy whose both parents went to prison. His uncle turned him on to the value of beekeeping, the value of bees, to teach us all about community and how we have to work together. And beekeeping is a way to build his resilience. His parents are now both out of prison, and it's just an honor to have been able to give him this platform to tell his own story. So thank you, Nora, and all.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not a festival without the filmmakers. I keep saying that because what do? Okay, I can do a tap dance number, I can do a one-woman show, but it will not be a film festival. So I can assure you for that. Oh, okay. Next, I have Roel next to her, to Holly.
Thanks, Nora. Thank you for hosting this and for inviting us to be part of this great festival of yours. And very happy also to be with all the other filmmakers, and very curious, of course, to see all their works. My film is Before the Oil. It's about the energy transition. In my daily work, I work for the Northern Netherlands government agency as an energy professional. And in addition to that, I also make films about energy transition and climate change. And I came across a very interesting man in Scandinavia, a region that I know very well. And there I met a guy that was teaching about the energy transition and choices that we have to make in the world we are living. And I found his story so pure, so true, that I wanted to record it on film. And that's why I made the film. And it's not my first film, but I wanted to record this message, and I'm very happy to be part of your festival and to be able to show it to the world, thanks to the great initiative that you are organizing. So thank you, Nora.
Sonia, also from the Netherlands. Oh, I forgot to say, maybe you want to say where you are joining in from.
Well, I'm in Rotterdam now, but I'm at the birthday party of a friend of mine, so I had to look for a place where I could hide from the party. And I don't know if I can make it for an whole hour, but at least I'll try to be as long as possible.
Thank you, Sonia. I brought you on a solo show because this is the situation. Since you are sitting on my screen, it's showing like you're hidden behind the logo of the festival. So maybe you want to move a little bit to your right. No, the others, yeah.
Okay.
And I have Edith, but we can't see her, which is a pity, because this is about meeting the filmmakers. So we won't talk to you very much, Edith, unfortunately, until you have your video.
I know, it's terrible. I put on a dress.
It's not a radio show, I forgot to say. Okay, let's come back to you, Philippe.
Sure. So my name is Philippe Diaz, and in my days, I'm the founder and head of Cinema Libre Studio, which is a production distribution company based in Los Angeles that I created 30 years ago. Yeah, of course, I'm in Los Angeles now, and I did the movie I Am Gitmo, which is about the people who were kidnapped from the Middle East after 9/11 and sold to the CIA for bounty and tortured, either in CIA black site or in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And we did that like a few years ago. The movie will be released now. I'm very grateful to Nora to be at the festival. Of course, she has an amazing festival we have been following for many, many years, and it's a great place to be. So thank you, Nora. Can't wait to be there.
Okay, thanks. So Simon.
Yeah, hello. My name is Simon. I'm a Norwegian filmmaker. I'm based in Oslo at the moment. So my name is, so my film is called sNOprint, which is the name of a theater project that's kind of a climate activism project, dialogue-led, where we tracked across Hardangervidda, which is like a mountain plateau in Norway, and started dialogue with people we met there, talking about climate change, like focusing on the fact that the snow is melting, but also just talking about climate change in general and like what can we do, will it get better, and all of that. So yeah, that's the short part of the film, and I want to thank you for being part of the festival. I can't wait to be there.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So Edith, what do we do? Are you going to be able to...
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but this is not a radio show.
Yeah, no, I know. I've been trying for 20 minutes now to put my picture
up.
So
you will just tell us quickly about what your film is about, and then I'm going to take you out.
The film is called Bleecker, and we shot it in New York, and we edited in New York, and I wrote most of it in New York, even though I've lived in different cities in different countries. I lived on Bleecker as a kid, and I've always been, intrigued by the village, so I'm excited to be showing it in the village. It's really cool. This will be our New York premiere with phenomenal ensemble, really great actors I've gotten to know over the years. I love theater. I love film. Living in New York, I get to see really great theater, but you miss people's faces, and the beauty of film is you can actually do that. So I'm excited to share it with everybody here.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I will remove you from the studio. I hate to do this, but this is not a radio show.
Okay, cool. It's a pleasure meeting everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in your film soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Unfortunately. So, also because we record this and it's put on our YouTube channel, and if one person is just a little medallion and we're only hearing a voice, it doesn't do justice to the name of the program, which is called Meet the Filmmakers Live. So this is where we are. So now we are the filmmakers. And my question to everyone is, why you made this film? How did the idea come to you? We didn't get Sonia to introduce her film.
Yes. Well, I was
carried away.
Well, my film is called Depot, Reflecting Boijmans. And Boijmans van Beuningen is a museum here in Rotterdam that was built about a century ago, a beautiful building. But nobody ever thought about a proper depot. And now, a century later, there's a combination here of not only a new building called Depot, but also a new typology of exhibiting in museums, because there's here in Holland, it's the first, let's say, experimental museum making that they have been trying to do with the building of this new depot, because the people here think that it's a pity that only 2% or 3% of collections are actually being shown in the museums. So my film is a bit, it's on the one hand a historical film about 100 years ago, with footage that I found about the building of the museum 100 years ago, and the building of the depot. It's called Depot, together with the museum. So it's kind of dream come true film, and I wanted to put it in a special, how to say it, not just an informative documentary, but I wanted to make it look like an adventurous documentary, as if not like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but in any case an adventure.
But more of a suspense, with a suspenseful story.
Yeah, so the form is experimental of the movie.
Yeah,
we had a special score made for the film, and but so the subject is the depot.
Yes, that's interesting. But since we stopped with you introducing quickly, maybe you can also elaborate in depth, and then we can go back to everyone to get more in depth into their films, telling us why this idea came to you and why did you pick up this subject and not something else. You know, I know you've done so many beautiful documentaries, but this time around it was about a structure, about a building.
Yeah, it's about the structure, about the building, but at the same time, it's also about what's going to be in this kind of structure. So it's not only about the building, it's not an architectural documentary. It's mostly about the idea behind it, because there are many depots in the world that museums have, but they're always outside the towns, you know, or in you know, the people don't get there, the regular audience. And in this case, the challenge that they have made in this museum is to that it's publicly accessible. So for all the people in the world, if you want to see a Rembrandt that is not in the exhibition, you can still go and see it, like in a library, for instance. And that is not very usual in the museum world. So when the director of this museum had this idea, it took him almost 20 years to actually make it happen. And I made a film in 2014 about the Museum Boijmans itself and about this director who is a very special character. So when I was making that film, I was already interested in what was going to happen with the depot. Does that a bit explain?
Yeah, it does. Yes. And it looks like it was a long-term project.
Yeah, it took me like almost 5 years to finish the film from start to end.
There's a lot of archival footage in it.
Exactly. Well, what I tried to show also is that in a way history repeats itself. I mean, 100 years ago, this museum was built around the collection of the museum. There was no place to put the collection, and it was built around the collection. And now, 100 years later, again, the space is too small. The collection has been growing like crazy, and now they don't only want to make it as an exhibition, but also to show the whole collection, which is quite new. It's never in the world seen, and right now people from all over the world are coming to see how they're doing this here, and also the form of the building is quite amazing, because it's like a big round pot.
Yeah.
So the people also call it the pot, actually, a pot.
That's quite interesting. Most museums in the world have a collection that is in the warehouses and
Exactly.
that is a lot bigger than what is actually on exhibit.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's the whole experiment, that it's publicly accessible, that it's not just a building. It's quite an experimental building, and so I also wanted to make an experimental film about the building.
Yeah. So who wants to be the next one? I don't want to keep going in a row. So whoever wants to tell us why they came up with this idea and how it happened, or was this a burning desire to tell the story for a few years, or did it coincidentally come to you? Because we've had filmmakers that were making something else, and then suddenly this subject comes up and grabs them by the neck and says, no, I need you to tell my story. So could also be that. Yes, Holly.
So thank you again. I think it's helpful to understand the genesis of BYkids and why we started this organization. The idea that democracy is predicated on active citizenry, that active citizenry is predicated on knowledge and empathy and understanding other people's situations. We started 17 years ago with a very simple notion that kids from around the world get a mentor, a camera, and enough coaching to be able to tell their own story. My background is as a New York Times journalist. I quickly realized that personally, writing is very difficult and painful, and I love film. I think the ability to change hearts and minds in the dark with a stranger that's kind of defangs your fear tendency is very powerful. So we've used that, but our real mandate is to allow one kid somewhere in the world to share their very personal story, build scaffolding around that with educational material, broadcast each of these films on PBS to 83 million households, partner with places like Discovery Education so that the film and the scaffolding allows kids in the American classroom to have what we call hard conversations. So we're hard at work every year making 4 new films. The one that is in the film festival, Beekeeper, was part of the November PBS broadcast nationally. I think what's exciting about these films, and this one I'll be very specific about, is we may have had the intention of having a conversation after somebody has seen this film about incarceration, about race. The filmmaker based in Louisville, Kentucky. He was mentored by another Louisville, Kentucky resident named Evan Muscogny, who's mentored another film of ours made by a Native American woman, teen. They worked together and made this incredible film that was about how Keith Griffith III turned to beekeeping because his uncle, once his dad had gone to prison and then his mom, his uncle is in a wheelchair and had been a beekeeper for many, many years to really help him keep his sanity. And he encouraged Mike to, why do I keep calling him Mike? Keith, to learn the attributes of beekeeping. And now Keith has a flourishing business called Being Together that is based in Louisville. They sell their honey all over the world. When Keith and his mom and dad came to New York for the first in-person screening we did of the film, they brought honey with them and are able to so resonantly talk about how important family is. Here's a mother who would go every week, 3 hours through horrible weather to visit her then boyfriend, who's Keith's father. and often brought Keith to visit in prison. So it's a film that brings you very personally into the experience of having a parent who is incarcerated, and it humanizes all of it, so that when you're with Keith and the mom in the car, when the father is about to surprise Keith, having gotten out of prison after many, 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 many years, you're with them. And it's just, it to me, with a fellow group of filmmakers, this idea that film can bring you into the immediacy and the personal inside view of anybody's life and into their hearts is remarkable. And this film, I think of the 17 films we've made with kids around the world, this one really pierces into what it means to be proud of each other and work together through adversity and to build resilience, all of which, you know, this quote that Keith has about making this film, he said, "I wanted to make this film because my family and I have a story to tell." Right. So that first level of being able, I feel so privileged to be able to curate and fund the ability of a kid who feels very powerless in our system, who feels very voiceless, right? Most kids feel that way. They're like, well, the only place anybody listens to me is on TikTok. And the fact that we were able to give Keith the platform, the microphone, the camera to tell his own story is incredibly empowering.
Yeah, it's really amazing, because what we were stuck with your project is that it's young people making something meaningful and productive out of their lives. We have another group like that already screened, that already came on the talk show. It's a film about that was made by a group of New York youngsters. It's a group called EVC. EV, I think so, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't had enough sleep. So they're also films that are made by kids, and it gives them an opportunity to tell their own stories. Yeah. So who else wants to tell us about their film? Actually, the interesting thing, let me interject before somebody gets in, is that all these documentaries are very interesting because they are telling us stories of situations that are so educational. They are teaching us so much. Narrative films do that as well. But with the documentaries, there is another kind of immediacy that we are attaining. Yes, Philippe wanted to tell us more about
to do or not, whatever you want. But so I Am Gitmo is not a documentary; it's a feature film, and I started to work on it long time ago, many years ago, when we started to hear that there were people, who had been kidnapped and sold in the Middle East, sold for bounty, and sent to Guantanamo and were tortured. And everybody thought, the first reaction was, no, that's not possible. That's rumor. It's crazy. America would never do that, of course. And little by little, we started to get more information, and specifically on the fact they were sold. And Donald Rumsfeld, who was at the time Secretary of Defense for George Bush, confirmed himself on live television that because they needed to find the terrorist, he had the brilliant idea to print millions of leaflets who were saying, bring me a terrorist, we'll give you a lot of money, and drop that all over Afghanistan. And the money was huge, because even if it was, it's not huge for the American government, of course, but $5,000, for example, it's 10 years of salary in Afghanistan. So, of course, the result was everybody started to turn anybody. The neighbor, they wanted his land and they hated his guts and decided to sell the guy, and the taxi driver because they wanted to have their car, or whatever it is. And the worst part is that the CIA never even checked the culpability of these people. They put them immediately through interrogation and said, where is Bin Laden? And the guys were saying, who? What? They didn't even know who Bin Laden was. Oops, sorry, that's my mistake. And so of course we started to hear more and more about that. But what really changed everything for me is when I read the first book really published on the question by one of the detainees. It was called Guantanamo Diary. And it was the story of Mohamedou Ould-Slahi, who spent 13 years in Guantanamo, 13 years, 1-3. And every day he was able to write a diary of what happened to him. You know, how he was tortured or he was beaten or et cetera, et cetera. And I can tell you, when I read the book, I was like, oh my God, that's impossible. That is absolutely the most insane story I ever heard. I even tried to buy the rights of the book to make a feature film about it, but it was already sold. It will become later on the Mauritanian, which was also for me, because when I heard about the Mauritanian, I said, okay, great. They are making a movie about it. I'm not going to make mine. But when I read the screenplay and saw the movie even after, I was outraged, to be honest with you, because for two reasons. I mean, they are great people. I love Jodie Foster. I love the director. I love all the actors in it. They did a wonderful work. But they forgot a little bit two things. The first one is that we're talking about human beings who are being tortured. And this guy was tortured for 13 years. And in the movie, you have probably, let's say, 2 minutes of torture, little cut editing, quick, about torture, which goes like that. And on the other hand, you have these interrogators who are super nice, super cool, who crack jokes with the people they are interrogating. He's playing soccer in the courtyard with other inmates. It's pretty much all good, And that was horrible. And I can tell you, I became very close to Mohamedou Ould-Slahi, because we distributed a documentary that's a long other story about him and his story. And it's so unfair to make that. So anyway, that was the first shock who pushed me to write the screenplay, because I wanted to do it from the point of view of the people who are being kidnapped and tortured. Not from because of course the Mauritanian, it's about a white woman, a wonderful white woman, Jodie Foster, and her wonderful assistant who will save the day because they are so great and so wonderful that and that's not the story.
Yes, it's more than anything else. Even though the Mauritanian was written and based on the book by that guy, it was still the story of the two lawyers, basically.
Absolutely. And that is outraging, because there are people dying from torture. A lot of people, as George Bush said, or Donald Rumsfeld, I forgot, said, yes, we lost a few lives during these tortures things. And you say, what are we talking about? We don't, so on the, and I'll finish on that, on the 800 people who were sent to Guantanamo, 85% were innocent and were sold to the CIA. 85%. And 85% spend anywhere from 10 to 20 years in Guantanamo. 20 years. There are still 30 people there today. So for me, it's beyond belief. So I'll stop here.
I know it's really a fascinating film. So it's screening on Saturday. I'm not going into the details of where each film is screening, because I'm going to do a little bit of a publicity business at some appropriate moment with the website and everything, so people can go and find out where these films are screening and when. So we have Edith. She's been able to get my camera to work, and I'm so thrilled to have her back with us. Hey, Edith, this is great. I'm glad you're back. And can you tell us a little bit about how the idea of this film came about? And I will come back to you, Roel and Simon, because your films are so interconnected in a way. You're talking about the same topic and the same country. So I want you both to talk together later. So Edith, tell us about how you got the idea of Bleecker and why it was important for you to tell us this story. Oh, okay, now we have a mic problem.
Hopefully it's okay.
Yes,
okay.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I was saying that it's really great to hear everybody else's stories and learn a little bit more about the world. That's the nice thing about living in New York, is you're constantly meeting people from all over. sometimes, you know, you hear a line of dialogue or you hear somebody say something and it's intriguing. So you keep it in mind, or there's a place that, you know, you do your own private walking tours of New York. But I lived on Bleecker as a kid, you know, and so I've always been intrigued by the area and the community aspect of it. And certain characters, it's a fiction, you know, it's a narrative, but I've always been jotting down things and things that intrigue me or scare me or make me sad or make me laugh. And I try to use humor, hopefully, as a means of talking about something more substantive.
Yes, and it's all about all these characters that come into interplay. The characters that we see all the time as we're walking down the street and up the stoops, and we look up and go, I wonder who lives here and what is the story.
Yeah. And you know, I also, you know, films like Robert Altman's Nashville and, you know, intertwining stories and the idea that, you know, or, you know, Chekhov, who's also referenced in the film, where, you know, something that happens in one scene actually impacts another, and thematically they're connected, even if, you know, they might look different, or sometimes you misjudge somebody because you know, you meet them and you think this or that, and in the course of the story, hopefully you come to care about them and wonder what happened to them or people you met along the way. I'm really interested in that, our own preconceptions sometimes when we meet people.
Yeah. So we come to Roel and Simon, and both these films, Roel's is a documentary about before the oil and what the situation was there. And Simon's is also a documentary, and it's talking about snow, actually, and its disappearance. That's why the title is sNO. No, there is no more snow. So that's basically the play on words. And they're both talking about the same country, Norway, if I'm not mistaken. But is this about different parts of Norway, or is it the same area that you are both dealing with?
I shot the film in the southern part of Norway, near Sirdal, so the southernmost part, relatively close to Stavanger area, but deep, high up in the mountains. A beautiful area. Norway is a stunning country, nature-wise. I love it.
And yours, Simon, is it the same?
It was shot on Hardangervidda, which is pretty much like it's like a mountain plateau. So it's in the southern half, but not like all the way south. So it's between Bergen and Oslo, like this big mountainous area, which stretches for a really long while.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, I mean, from what I know about Norway, having been there and also read about it, or the pictures we see and everything, and a movie I saw recently, a narrative feature, not a documentary, but snow is so much part of Norwegian life, and being in the snow and swimming in the snow and being out there just walking and skiing and living in the snow, that its disappearance, or if it's less than what it's supposed to be, is really a huge tragedy. Not necessarily
it is.
on the
it's part of our culture and our identity. So when it's disappearing, it's also kind of some part of our cultural identity is disappearing with it, because like we're no longer like doing like the skiing and everything. It's just so like ingrained in the culture. So that's why it's such an important topic for us, for all of us, I think.
But also in terms of global climate issues, like this is, you're depicting a country and you're telling us what's happening over there, what it was like before the oil in case of Roel's, and how the snow is disappearing in your case, Simon. But it's just a reflection of what's going on a larger scale, globally speaking, and how the world climate is changing and how that is impacting our lives as human beings living on this planet. Therefore, this year, our section on climate change and environment, we have called it Our Planet instead of climate change or the environment, but because there is no planet B, like everybody says that, but nobody is doing anything about it. So yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
That's also one of the reasons why we made this our film Before the Oil, basically to tell the story of this very interesting man, Odd Quinnen in Norway. I made the film together with my photographer friend Martijn Heemstra. We did it together, so I'm very happy with his help. But what we did is we recorded his story about this energy transition, and the story about before oil was found, Norway was not that rich at that time. And then we talk about the 1960s, previous century. And this man has been living in the mountains for decades. That's where his whole family tree is coming from. And he has seen the changes with building the first hydro dam, the first oil installations, and the changes that came with it. And he addressed a very simple but deep question, if you like. And in essence, he said, well, oil made us all rich, but did we become happier? And that is a very intriguing question. And we talked about it a lot. And we all will need much more energy in the years to come. But at the same time, we want to phase out our oil. But there are some realities that we must face if we want to change to renewable energy and more clean energy. But are we really willing to change? And that is the topic of our film. And I think the way how he told it, and the fact that we could shoot it at his husky farm. He's running a husky farm deep in the mountains. It's so beautiful nature, so pure. And this man has nothing to hide, has no agenda. He's just sharing his wisdom with us. And the kind of questions that he's posing is really making you think. And we had something like, we have to record this story on film. This is something we all should think about. We are willing to change to renewable energy, but are we really willing? Are we doing our most effort? And I think that's what our film is about.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because since the 2015 Paris Convention on Climate, like we're talking 9 years ago already, and what has really changed fundamentally, I mean, people are talking, there are laws and regulations, we have activists coming out and, trying to make people understand that this is a huge responsibility on our generations and we have to do something and so on. But what are the real tangible steps that are being taken? So it is a very, very major question that we all need to ask, because if the planet goes kaput, then what is the point of all these beautiful films and the festival? And none of this will exist. Our lives will not be the same. We will be, I don't know, we can go extinct as a.
Well, I think the beauty of making films like we all do is sharing a message and showcasing it and visualizing it. And I think that is so important, especially in this modern world where especially the younger generation is using social media and YouTube and videos much more than we used to do when we were younger. So I think it's very important for us as filmmakers to see film and filmmaking as an educational tool. And I think it is a very strong educational tool. We just have to find the right voice, the right message. But I think film and filmmaking, if it's short or long, it is a very important tool, especially to address the younger generation. So I'm very happy in this field and to see also all your work. I think it's very important.
Yes, and the whole idea of the festival, I'm very proud to say that in our 11 years, we have been able to go consistently with no interruption. Even during the 2 COVID years, 2020 and 2021, the festival took place. It went online. But then that gave us the opportunity to understand that online is not such a bad thing after all. In fact, on the contrary, it opened up the way to other countries, and we were able to interview the filmmakers like we are doing right now. Before, we were only able to interview the filmmakers who came to New York or who were already in New York. And now that we are a hybrid film festival, we're able to talk to everyone. And the idea is that you all should be also networking and, collaborating eventually, hopefully. I personally collaborated on 2 feature films with a filmmaker from Finland, Rax Renikangas, who was with us in 2022. And we already did 2 feature films in which I am a major character as an actor, because I forgot to say, I always forget it, that I'm first and foremost an actor who does this festival during her sleeping hours. So there we go. We already did 1 film last February. And this January, like last month, 2 months ago already, we're March, we filmed in Spain, and that film is in post-production right now. And it came as a result of all this interaction and knowing about each other, about each other's work. So in an ideal world, we should all be collaborating together and producing more socially relevant, social issue-oriented, human interest-oriented stories. All right, Simon, you want to add something about the climate situation, which we were talking about?
Yeah, it's very interesting hearing about the film from Roald, because I can really see like the similarities, and there's a lot of topics that's the same. And what you say about if we're willing to, that's definitely something that's come up a bunch of times during the film. And I can say a bit about, because it's a bit different than maybe how you would normally do a documentary, because none of the interviews are planned. It's all just people we meet along the way on our travels, because every day we would tent out outside in the snow, and then we would be nearby these tourist cabins, and then we would meet people inside the cabins and start talking with them, and maybe if they wanted to, they could be on film and talk about these issues. So that was like the main part of the project. And I can talk a little bit about how it started, because it started very suddenly. It was last year in Easter. I had been living in Ireland for 2 years, and I just came back to Norway. And then Solveig, who runs Apropos Theater, which is the company that does this project, she called me and talked about this project. And first she asked me if I wanted to come up and film this kind of festival they had at this place called Finse, which would be like the end of their journey, which I first said yes to, but then I came back and thought that I kind of had to be there for the whole journey to get the idea of the project and their journey. And I think that was good for the film, because then I kind of wanted to experience the journey through this film, which I think I accomplished.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to normal people, because they are the people who are using this opportunity. They are there for the snow, and they have a lot to say about it. So who did we not get? Oh, by the way, Holly is in New York, Edith is in New York, and Philippe is in Los Angeles, right? In Burbank, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Right now I'm in Topanga because I'm at home, but yes, the office is in Burbank.
Okay. And I am so happy that I think all 5 of you are attending the festival.
Hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, Roa was not sure at one point, but maybe he is sure now. Not sure.
I will do my best.
Yes, that will be great if you can make it. But if you can't, we understand. Unfortunately, we are not a big festival like the Cannes Film Festival or somebody like that to be able to pay for filmmakers to come. And we've been lucky a couple of years in a row to have some hotel sponsors, and we've been able to house, at least offer accommodation to our filmmakers, because it gets very expensive, as we know, in New York. But unfortunately, that has stopped with COVID and it hasn't resumed yet. We have a question. Okay, at this point, let's see. Michael Clays, who is a member of the Film Festival's team and on the board, and he is asking, I've walked the length of Bleecker Street many times and always found it one of the most diverse streets with small pockets that seem to change from east to west. How did that play into your film? And I guess the question is directed to Edith. You're mute still, Edith. Yeah.
I'm so, technically inept, which is sad, and this is how it is. And I try to work on it, but yes, it's true. And the other day, Nora, actually, I was listening to one of these interviews that you did, and you talked about Harlem and gentrification of Harlem, but you also talked about Harlem in general changing. So I can speak about Bleecker, but I actually, just a larger issue is when we were shooting, so many times there would be scaffolding everywhere.
Yeah.
Or you would see something beautiful that you always wanted to put in a film, like, the bandshell in Central Park, and there'd be scaffolding, and, rather than cut around it, I think it's important to show it. This is part of life, and, it can be with buildings, it can be paint on a wall, you see the layers underneath. I think there's beauty in patina and in rust even, and things like that. So I'm interested in texture. I'm interested in, maybe the contrast between different people and their voices and their cultures and their ways of thinking, but also, the city itself and things constantly being in flux and changing, and things like overlapping dialogue. And when I was talking about Chekhov or this or that, it's like, that there's something going on in the next room. It's not just that life exists within the parameters of the frame, so I'm interested in that. And when I was saying this thing of scaffolding, it's like, rather than cut around it, incorporate that. And anything that might be kind of like, oh, this was here and it hurts me. For example, this constantly happens to me, and it doesn't have to be just on Bleecker. Bleecker is not meant to be like didactic, or it's just Bleecker Street or this or that. But, we were in Chinatown, and there's a beautiful artist whose name is John Yu, who would do these murals called the 88 Gates Chinatown murals. And he would paint them, and I would like scout them in my own private little scouts, and then we'd go and shoot, and like it would be gone. And the beauty of film is, like Vendor said, that, it captures these things that are gone after a while, the sadness of life, in a way that you're able to, we have this conversation or somebody photograph, and you preserve it. So the same thing is like these Chinatown gates that later were gone, we have on film. And for me, that's kind of the beauty and the victory of film, that even a person who you don't see, or, it can be an incidental. And this is why I always kind of stress it. We don't have a big star or this or that. It's like, to me, every character is integral and important, and I'm interested in that. And the same thing as locations. And, so rather than try to just make it a studio movie or just in this particular set, I'm interested in the contrast of the different buildings and the different locations, even on the same block or even within the same city. Or for us, like, look at us right now, it's our 6 little screens. Like, that's what film is for me, the contrast of the things, and in a way also the unification, because you can share all sorts of garbage. There's all, I look at Instagram also, and I look at these things and I'm interested in it. But there's all sorts of negative aspects of social media or film or whatever, and the superficial. And it can also be the opposite of that. It can be, I think about like Amelie, or, that you could say, hey, listen, the gentleman who was a painter in that film, in a moment, you can send a video link to somebody somewhere else and be inspired by some piece of music or some photograph or some piece of art. And here we might all be different, have different lives, whatever, but certainly there are a lot of similarities, and also in the differences, how exciting is it that we can learn from one another and be intrigued by one another and what we have to say. I hate seeing myself on screen, so that's a joke, but forgive me. And in a way, maybe that was on purpose that I couldn't do the video, which is not true.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes our energy reflects into the technical stuff, and then
this is true. This is true. But the nice thing is, you know, that I spent so many years writing it and, you know, rewriting. And I'm also very interested in dialogue, and I love a lot of theater. And so I'm always like interested in how people wrote dialogue and this and that. But the nice thing is that making a film is you get to collaborate. And so at some point, as much as you're working so rigorously, like you bring in someone who's a wonderful cinematographer and you share with them boards and you know, all this kind of stuff that you really accumulated over many years. And then you also kind of say, you know what, you have a beautiful eye and you're technically adept, and like, you fucking do it because I can't, and I try, and you do that, and you do this, and you do this, and hopefully all of us together will make something that's greater. And great is an arbitrary term, but something richer and deeper and more.
Actually, with the narrative films like yours and Philippe's film, I Am Gitmo, it's both of them have to the capacity of the director. I'm always amazed at that, of bringing together this huge team.
Yeah.
And getting them
a lot of moving parts and synchronizing. That's the thing with like a festival, you can't always get everybody to be there who is part of it, you know, but hopefully it exists on film, and like you get a sense of them. And sometimes they're similar and sometimes they're vastly different than the characters you see. So you never really know. That's the exciting thing also.
And it has to work like clockwork. Every little bit has to be there for all of it to make sense.
Or you have a blizzard when you're expecting, or you have an actor who's on a fire escape, and that's dangerous, and 1,000 other considerations. So there are worse things in the world. Certainly we're lucky to be able to do this, but it's not easy. So you embrace the good and the bad, and hopefully you make something of it.
That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, that's why I think this is an important film festival, not because I founded it, but because when I did put it together, I saw that there was a gap in the film festival scene, because a lot of film festivals were like a mix and match of whatever, and then some film festivals go to the bigger film festivals like Cannes and Rotterdam and what have you, and pick best films or the films that are already doing good there, and then bringing them to their festival. And I feel like, what is the point in that? Because that film already has the spotlight on it, has already been seen, has already been written about. It will have a journey. It will go somewhere. Whereas in our case, we want to bring to the audience's attention, or to everybody's attention, films that might otherwise fall through the cracks or go under the radar and not be seen. So that's why I always say we go to Film Freeway or the platforms that actually we only work exclusively with Film Freeway. We are partners with Film Freeway, and we love that platform because they are really fantastic in servicing their clients. Every time we have a problem, immediately the response comes within, I don't know, half an hour, or if the time difference is correct, and so on. And we find amazing films that are submitted every year. And we focus on what is submitted to us instead of going and looking for stuff that is not on our plate. So that is very, very important. And I thank you all for thinking of our festival and submitting to us, which brings me to the next question. How did you find out about the festival? And what made you decide that you should apply here?
Well, I can start by saying that we have been, because our studio, our production distribution studio, is focused on social issue related film, either documentary or feature film. So of course, when there's a festival who is called socially relevant, that gets our attention immediately. And we have been, again, following your festival for maybe 10 years or something like that, and are very proud to be part of it this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In fact, there is a little anecdotal business here, which I have to share. In 2013, when I was at the Cannes Film Festival, and I was trying to put this festival together. I was not unfamiliar with the festival scenes, but in fact, because I knew so much about film festivals and had been a guest curator at a number of other film festivals, I had said to myself, never, ever in my life will I ever do a film festival. It's crazy. You have to be crazy to do something like that. And then this opportunity arose because I was getting really disturbed by all the violence that I was seeing on posters, and the gratuitous violence, I should say, and also a lot of special effects and things that don't tell you the story really, and a lot of money that is being spent on making films that I don't know who thinks, because the studios think that the audience wants this and the audience doesn't have another choice, so go to these films. So I felt maybe it's time to offer an alternative form of entertainment. And then we were at the Cannes Film Festival, and I stopped by a Cinema Libre studio, the stand, and I go, wow, this place sounds like they might have films that would be exactly what we're looking for. And in fact, both Philippe and Beth have been very, very supportive of the festival. Cinema Libre has been a partner in an industry partner, and Beth will be on the panel. We have a panel for the filmmakers, which will be addressing casting and distribution and the relationship between the two on Saturday morning. So I thank you as well.
Nora, I do want to say something, since you were talking about acting. I think that there's, a lot of superficiality involved with the business. You talk about casting and the business side of it, and certainly you have to be aware of all of that. But I also think that acting is a noble profession, and I think that it can actually, aid with empathy and compassion and relating to other human beings. Like all of us in our lives could have maybe met this other person or had this other teacher, this other person who inspired us. How do we even know, So sometimes we ourselves are kind of restrictive or judgmental or whatever. So sometimes, being an actor, I think, is actually beautiful. And I know that it's not easy. I know none of this is easy, And
Edith is absolutely right. We have this experience. I produce 25 feature films, and I know that actors are making the movie. Imagine the one that I just did. One man is tortured from beginning to end, and the other one is his interrogator, who is pushing to have information. Without them, there's no movie. And they did a wonderful job, because we even got the Best Actor award at the Marbella Film Festival. So they are the one who make the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody is the one. There's the writers, there's this.
You're right. Absolutely.
Everybody. And like without everyone, it wouldn't happen. None of it. So
correct.
Very, very true. And now with AI coming up, now I'm going to throw another monkey wrench into the fan. And it's crazy because some people who are in the business side of it, not in the creative side of it, think that it will be cheaper, easier. Let's get the AI to do the actor's part. But I seriously doubt that that's going to go on forever or be there or replace the actor. Where is the soul? How do you bring the soul on the screen? So that is very, very important. So I have another message from Michael, which I want to read to you all, because we have 2 minutes and we need to get off the air. And that says, thank you all for bringing your fine work to the festival. And I cannot but second that, because again, like you're saying, actors are important. Every little bit in the filmmaking business is important. The sound is very important in documentary films, for example. You don't have actors, but you have to have excellent sound. As you know, as we all know, a bad image can be saved if you have excellent sound, but a good image can also be ruined if your sound is terrible. So all this is very, very important to tie into one another. So let me see. There is a message again. Hope to see you. Yes, of course. We all hope that each of you will be there. The opening night this year is a slow opening at the Maisel Cinema. It's a relatively smaller space, but it's an amazing space. Founded by Albert Maisels, who I have had the honor of meeting and knowing. And it helps the local youth come together, learn about documentary filmmaking, and there are a lot of interesting events that go on there. And our festival starts there with a group of films, and then continues at MRHS, the Morningside Health and Retirement Services, which is a New York-based NORC. And then on 15th, 16th, and 17th of March, we are at Cinema Village. And I am scrolling the festival website, so whoever is interested can go there, find out about the films, when they are screening. There is a full schedule. And the closing awards night this year is at the National Arts Club on March 18. And I hope that all the filmmakers will be there, and we can all get to see each other's work and meet each other in person. We also have a number of happy hours that we organize for the filmmakers, and we have two cine, what do I call them? Cine cafe sessions. One of them is online, the other one is in person. So people have a chance to talk to each other. So one more thing. We have just extended the early birds, which were supposed to end yesterday, but we thought we should give people a chance. They're only $5. And if you purchase a trio, it comes to $4 a ticket, because for $12, you get 3 tickets, which you can either use for the same film or 3 different films, or grab 2 friends and go and see a film together. And then the 75 Trio Elite allows you to come to opening, closing, and 3 films. So this said, I have to get off the air now, unless somebody has a burning last-minute word to say. So give you one more chance to say it before we go.
Thank you for organizing this, Nora.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You give me the positive energy needed to undertake such a event. Thank you all, and I can't wait to meet you all in person.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
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 Okay.
Ik denk dat hij zelf uitgaat, maar...
Daar rechtsbovenin? Oh nee.
Ja, kijk hier, dit ben jij. Hallo. Kijk.
Leave the studio.